Richard Hartford stood at the window of his mother's bedroom, watching the manicured lawns of the estate stretch toward distant trees. His suit was pressed to perfection. His watch worth more than most people earned in a year, but none of it mattered now. Behind him, his mother Dorothy sat hunched in her wheelchair. At 83, she had become a shadow of the vibrant woman who had once tended her own garden and baked pies for neighborhood gatherings. Her silver hair, once her pride, hung limp around her weathered face. Her hands, gnarled with age, trembled constantly now. "Mother, you need to eat something," Richard said, his voice tight with frustration. He turned to face her, but Dorothy simply stared past him, her eyes clouded and distant. His wife, Vanessa, stood in the doorway, elegant in her red evening gown. They had a charity gala to attend, another night of networking, of maintaining appearances. She checked her watch with barely concealed impatience. "The nurse will be here soon," Vanessa said softly. "We really should go." Richard nodded, though guilt gnawed at him. They had hired the best nurses money could buy. Physical therapists came 3 times a week. The kitchen prepared special meals tailored to her dietary needs. Yet his mother continued to fade, withdrawing deeper into herself with each passing day. As they left, Richard glanced back. Dorothy hadn't even noticed their departure. 3 weeks later, desperation finally broke through Richard's pride. The nurses reported that Dorothy was refusing to eat, barely speaking, spending her days staring at nothing. One doctor suggested depression. Another mentioned the early stages of dementia. Richard felt helpless in a way his money couldn't fix. That's when Maria Rodriguez arrived. She was 48, with kind eyes and a quiet manner. She came to the service entrance carrying a worn bag of cleaning supplies, recommended by the agency, as a temporary replacement for their regular housekeeper. Maria noticed Dorothy immediately, not the elegant furniture or the expensive artwork, but the elderly woman slumped in the wheelchair by the garden window, alone in that vast, beautiful room. "Good morning," Maria said gently, approaching with a warm smile. "My name is Maria. I'll be helping keep your lovely home clean." Dorothy's eyes flickered toward her, then away. Maria didn't push. She simply began her work, dusting the surfaces, straightening the curtains. But every few minutes, she would speak to Dorothy in that same gentle voice, sharing small observations about the weather, the birds outside, the flowers blooming in the garden. Dorothy said nothing, but Maria noticed she had stopped staring into nothing. She was listening. The next day, Maria brought something different. As she cleaned, she hummed an old melody, something her own mother had sung to her as a child. It was a simple tune, the kind that carries memories of simpler times. Dorothy's head turned slightly. "My mother used to sing that song," Maria said, pausing in her work. "While she cooked, while she folded laundry. I must have heard it 1,000 times, but I never got tired of it." "Do you like music, Mrs. Hartford?" For the first time in weeks, Dorothy spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper, rusty from disuse. "My mother sang too. I'd forgotten." Maria's heart swelled. She pulled a chair close and sat down, meeting Dorothy at eye level. "What did she sing?" Over the next hour, Dorothy spoke in halting phrases about her childhood. Simple memories, the kind we think we've forgotten until someone asks the right question. Maria listened with genuine interest, never rushing, never interrupting. When Richard came home that evening, he found them still talking. His mother's face had more color than he'd seen in months. Days turned into weeks. Maria came to understand that Dorothy didn't need more medical care or expensive treatments. She needed what we all need, someone to see her as a person, not a problem to be solved. Maria learned that Dorothy had once been an accomplished gardener, so she began wheeling Dorothy outside for short visits, describing the flowers in detail, sometimes placing petals in Dorothy's trembling hands so she could feel their softness. She discovered Dorothy had loved to bake. Maria brought simple ingredients and, with patience, helped Dorothy measure flour and sugar, guiding her hands when they shook too much. The results were imperfect, but Dorothy's face glowed with purpose. Most importantly, Maria simply spent time with her, real time, not checking her watch or looking at her phone, but being fully present. She talked about her own life, her 3 grown children, her grandson who was learning to play guitar. She asked Dorothy for advice, treating her like the wise woman she was, not like a burden. Slowly, remarkably, Dorothy began to return to herself. Vanessa noticed the change first. "She's eating," she told Richard one evening, wonder in her voice. She asked for seconds at dinner, and she was humming. Richard visited his mother's room the next morning. Dorothy was sitting up straighter, her hair brushed and pinned back neatly. Maria was reading to her from a book of poetry, Dorothy's favorite from decades past. "Mother?" Richard said softly. Dorothy turned to him, and for the first time in months, her eyes were clear and focused. "Richard, come sit with us." Maria was just reading the most beautiful poem. He sat, fighting back tears he didn't know he had. Over the next hour, his mother spoke more than she had in half a year. She asked about his work, not because she should, but because she seemed genuinely interested. She asked about Vanessa. She even laughed at one of Maria's gentle jokes. When Maria excused herself to continue her work, Richard followed her into the hallway. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "The doctors, the nurses, the therapists? We tried everything. But you in just a few weeks." Maria smiled gently. "I didn't do anything special. Mr. Hartford, I just remembered that your mother is still a person. She has stories, memories, things she loves. Everyone needs to feel that they matter, that someone sees them." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes when we're trying to take care of someone, we forget to simply be with them." The truth of her words hit Richard like a physical blow. He had been so busy arranging his mother's care that he had forgotten to care for her himself, to sit with her, to listen, to remember who she was beyond her age and illness. Things changed after that conversation. Richard began visiting his mother every morning before work, not to check on her medical condition, but to have coffee together and talk. Really talk. Vanessa joined them on weekends, and slowly, Dorothy shared stories they had never heard. About her youth, about her marriage to Richard's father, about the dreams she had held. Maria continued coming, though her role had transformed. She was no longer just the cleaning lady. She was Dorothy's friend, and in many ways, the teacher who had shown the Hartford family what they had almost lost. One afternoon, 6 months after Maria had first arrived, Richard found his mother in the garden. She was standing, leaning on Maria's arm, bending slowly to smell a rose bush. "It's beautiful," Dorothy said, her voice stronger than it had been in a year. "I'd forgotten how beautiful they are." Richard watched from the window, his heart full. His mother was still frail, still elderly, still facing the inevitable challenges of aging, but she was alive again, in the way that mattered most. That evening, he asked Maria to join them for dinner. It was time to make something clear. "Maria," he said as they sat around the table, Dorothy smiling between them, "I want to thank you, not as an employer, but as a son. You gave me back my mother. You showed me what I'd been too blind to see." Maria shook her head gently. "Your mother was always there, Mr. Hartford. She just needed someone to reach out their hand. Love doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting together, listening, remembering that we're all human, all worthy of dignity and connection." Dorothy reached across the table, taking both Maria's hand and Richard's in her own trembling grip. "I'm grateful," she said simply, "for both of you, for remembering that life is still worth living, even at my age." The seasons changed. Dorothy's physical health stabilized, not because of any miracle cure, but because she had found reasons to keep going. She had purpose again, connections, joy in small moments. Richard learned to slow down, to value time over money, presence over presence. He learned that the best inheritance he could receive from his mother wasn't wealth, but wisdom, stories, and the understanding that every person, regardless of age or circumstance, needs to feel seen and valued. And Maria? She continued to come several times a week. Though her duties had long since evolved beyond cleaning, she brought light and laughter, patience and understanding. She reminded everyone that kindness isn't complicated. It just requires us to see each other truly and to care. On warm afternoons, you could find them in the garden together. An elderly woman in a wheelchair, a middle-aged housekeeper, and sometimes a successful businessman, all sitting together in the sunshine, sharing stories and laughter, connected not by money or obligation, but by the simple, powerful act of being human together. That, Dorothy would say with a smile, was the real impossible thing. Not that she had gotten better, but that they had all learned what it meant to truly care for one another. And in the end, that made all the difference.